So, Greg, I want to get back to you because we were talking about journalism and the ways that journalism is changing, the ways that we are lamenting journalism's changes. And it occurs to me that as we are lamenting the New York Times and the LA Times and the Miami Herald, that the Daily Northwestern is putting on a clinic in front of the entire country about the power of journalism, as Pat Fitzgerald is fired yesterday in a way that we had foreseen on the show earlier that day, but nonetheless was a pretty stunning reversal from what the president of the university had just done, which is suspend him for 2 effectively meaningless weeks, only for the student newspaper, man. These insufferable, those dastardly insufferable future sports media members actually had the goods, and the story changed massively.
It's the pressure change. Were you asking, Greg? I'm very sorry, but
No.
your job, Northwestern, they didn't create the story. So I want to make sure that we're very clear that Fitzgerald did this to himself and Schill did this to himself. The fact
president.
that it's Northwestern, he's the president, the fact that it's the journalism school and that we're giving them this level of credit because it's Northwestern journalism. But for a subject doing something wrong, you can be the best journalist in the world and there's nothing to do.
That's true, but more power to the student newspaper. More power to great student newspapers all over the country, including the Alligator at the University of Florida. They need to ferret it out. You know, covering a news.
Yes.
I always thought that covering a college for a college newspaper, you got to treat that college as a city. You are a reporter covering an entire city. You're covering sports. You're covering administration. You're covering society. You're doing all of that. And so more power to them. But to me, this story at Northwestern, it's bigger than Northwestern, obviously. And to me, for decades now, I've thought, why are we still hazing? You know, applying to sports, applying to teams, applying to dorms and sororities. Why are we still hazing? Doing things that are just literally dangerous, not to mention inhumane and demeaning. We just need it. Can't we just eliminate hazing?
Well, it builds camaraderie when it's not something, right? Like the idea of it, obviously there's a line, and obviously this went way past the line. I had hazing when making the varsity baseball team in high school. Like, and it, you know, it's the whole group getting together at a house. And, you know, there was, like, even with me, there was some stuff there that, like, they blindfold you. They make it seem like you're walking in and doing something.
Your
like,
dad is already dismayed by
it's
your...
ridiculous.
But it's something that I think back on as, like, a fun time because it didn't go past the line. No one was nude. There may have been jokes about what you're walking into. You're blindfolded, you know, but, like, nothing actually happened. So there's no line. So I get the idea of hazing is team building. Like, let's get all together. If you guys want to be on this team, you got to prove... Like, I get it in theory if it's not past the line.
Okay. Are you saying that's an essential, necessary element of team building?
Well, maybe there could be other ways to do it, but I do think camaraderie and team building is important.
Okay, but why does it have to involve either...
I'm not defending this. I feel like now I'm in the spot where I'm defending what happened to Northwest. I'm just defending team building and teams getting to get initiations,
by the way,
harmless initiations.
By making other people suffer.
Well, this is, but what Chris is saying about this story, or not about this story, but about his experience, is what the people at Northwestern, the players, are claiming. That this brought us together. That this was not a problem. This is exaggerated, that this is twisted, that these student reporters have gotten it all wrong, that there is a player, a former player, who has taken as his mission the ouster of Pat Fitzgerald.
It wasn't one former player.
Yeah, it was 11 former players. They didn't release the full report, but they released parts of it. It was 11 guys, so that whole he just wants to take down Pat Fitzgerald argument, it's just not true. It's not accurate.
And this is what, going back to what the Daily Northwestern helped uncover, is the depth of consensus that is bigger, 11 players, large actually, than what had been portrayed initially. And as a general rule, I guess, like, it's just not good when you have as many losses in a season as you have players who are now attesting to a disturbing hazing scandal.
What's even more disturbing is what Pat Fitzgerald released a statement. And in his statement, he was defending the fact that 99% of my guys end up as great husbands and great fathers, and they go on to help change the world, as though he was trying to explain that the locker room mentality, the team building that I do, I cannot believe the way the world is reacting to this. This is absolute horse hockey. And by the way, I'm hiring a lawyer because I was told I'm suspended 2 weeks, and now you're telling me that I'm fired. I plan on getting my pound of flesh.
He has $42 million left in that contract. That is why he is getting a lawyer.
Yes, $57 million over 10 years is the deal that he had signed. By the way, $5.7 million a year is more than several NFL coaches to go 1-11, which I keep bringing up just because it feels like an important bit of context as to why you would move on with this level of speed after realizing that there was this depth of backlash from your alumni.
The problem with the whole hazing culture is that it's always excused as team building and as harmless fun. And the problem with the hazing culture is that it is rooted in danger and humiliation.
Yes. No, look, Greg, there is the reporting here provided speaks to, look, listening to former players, the people who are defending Fitzgerald still today, it's been frustrating because this is not like a cancel culture thing, right? On paper, when you look at what has been reported, what has been corroborated by the quote-unquote independent investigator who they hired to look into this for 6 months, what is not in dispute is whether this happened. It did happen. What is in dispute is whether the players were cool with it, whether it was better than has been portrayed. But the very basic facts of were there naked players who were being used as a human car wash that you had to get through to go through the locker room? Were you getting dry humped in the dark by players wearing masks? Like that stuff on the merits, on the evidence did happen.
But he's claiming that he did not know about it.
And so
to be clear, that was the issue. The investigation did not find beyond a reasonable doubt that Fitzgerald as the coach knew, and then Schilth said, great, 2 weeks. Oh, wait a minute, maybe he should have known.
And so my position is simply, if you guys loved Pat Fitzgerald so much, you probably shouldn't have done this thing allegedly without his knowledge that obviously would have gotten him fired if it ever came out.
He knew. It's preposterous that he didn't
But
know.
my point is either way, either you guys are responsible for why Pat Fitzgerald got fired, or Pat Fitzgerald is clearly somebody who should have known it to begin with.
We live in a time of mental health challenges being out there public. We hear NBA players talk about it. We hear Olympic gold medalists talk about it. It's tough sometimes being an athlete. It's tough being in your 20s. I imagine it's tough being a college football player and trying to please everybody and do all of these things. So why are we compounding the difficulty of that, the mental challenge of that, by doing some of these hazing things that are just extreme and ridiculous? Why, when I sign a scholarship to play football at a school, do I have to all of a sudden do what you just described? It's patently absurd. Quite frankly, it should be illegal. A university, a team should make hazing illegal. They should have. David, you were a team president. I'm sure the Marlins have their version.
We hazed rookies.
What did that involve?
They have to go buy they have to dress up and go get all the breakfast, right?
Just making fun, making them do errands, making them dress up as, looking back, you dress up as things that maybe they shouldn't be dressing up as today. So it's changed over time. The rules of engagement have changed.
Sure.
In terms of what costumes you can make a rookie wear.
But this story specifically.
That's below the line, though,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
this is all we're talking about.
I am
here.
happy
Let's be
to-
fundamentally decent.
Yes, I am happy to debate about the line when it comes to which costumes a rookie can wear while they're buying donuts in the morning. What is being presented in this reporting is just flatly unacceptable, and to Greg's point, seemingly criminal.
I'm not sure what the crime there is, unless they're told that if they don't do that, then they will not be able to earn their living and they don't get paid, or maybe their NILs would be sacrificed. I'm not sure where in the criminal code it would be that you can't have a player jiggle naked. What was the expression? Were they jiggling or nilling or willing?
They were doing more than that, though, right? It was the idea of, hey, these naked players around you, in order for you to be on this team, are going to do all of this stuff that feels like, again, not a lawyer, David, but it has the appearance of sexual misconduct.
Yes, and I'm completely, just to be clear where I stand on this. However, I would mention that in clubhouses, in sports, nudity has a different view than it does at a fraternity or in an office. If we were hazing people and saying get naked, that is different if we were in a clubhouse as athletes.
So
they're naked all day.
So this is.
There's a difference between we all shower together sometimes and get naked right now and hike me the ball.
And this is where
I agree. There is a difference.
But this is how all this stuff is born, right?
All
like
naked.
we talked yesterday about like locker room talk and what that protects as a conceptual shield. Here is a version of locker room culture being taken, metastasizing into a truly like poisonous direction in which players have attested to having mental health problems because they went through this stuff.
A player talked to the Daily Northwestern yesterday, and he works in the mental health field, and he was like, I have been in therapy over what happened to me at Northwestern for 10 years, and that is coming from a mental health professional.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it's the point I'd made earlier, and it's just something that just feels wrong from the start of it. And it's always excused as team building, as fun, harmless fun, but too often it isn't. I wish I could quantify it, but I guarantee you somebody does. Deaths related to hazing. It's not that uncommon. A couple of times a year you read something about a death related to a hazing. And how many untold examples are there of mental health issues directly related to hazing? It can get to the point where it's absolutely demeaning, and if it isn't criminal, maybe it's...
This is a new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.
So I don't co-sign what just happened at the end of that segment, Chris.
Not my best judgment, maybe.
Chris
but
whispered into my ear, I'm doing it, I don't give it.
30 seconds left. I was like, this is a serious conversation. Sometimes we don't do the hard net workout in those spots, but I just wanted to do it.
I was wondering, I was just watching the clock and then listening to Greg as he was like mounting his grand finale, and I was like, nope, he has no idea. We've been doing it why would I even complain about this?
Segment.
It's been decades, but like it's been every segment today.
Yeah, you remember how I said earlier that I rethink my will depending on how much Christopher is pissing me off?
You use that joke so much.
Lucy is
that a joke?
salivating at the estate sale, though.
I would love to take some stuff from your basement.
Okay.
It's Florida, by the way, Lucy.
We
just
don't have
FYI,
basements
there's no
here,
basements.
by the way.
You don't
Yeah.
have basements here?
No, we have
You'd be
limestone.
underwater.
We have garages.
Water table,
We
stuff
have
like
attics.
that.
Barely have attics.
Yeah.
Is she learning this for the first time for
Yeah.
sure right now? Is this your live face of learning that in Florida there are no basements?
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
You need scuba equipment. Yeah. Like a snorkel.
So to recap, you do bury time capsules, but you do not have basements.
How does that work? Oh, I guess you said your thing was protected.
This is why
Concrete,
it was
It is concrete.
protected.
You actually
learned a lot today.
remediate. You don't build the columns below the water table.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this.
So
This
there's
is
a
all very
table,
genuine.
right? Picture a table, but then there's water on it. And then if you dig and you touch the table, then the water comes up. So that's why it would flood if you put a basement down.
Tony's
That was actually very helpful.
Tony's explanation.
That made total sense to me.
Oh,
Now,
that's
I
worrisome.
probably shouldn't have done that hard net workout last segment, but we did one time catch my dad. I'm going to play this sound right now of an awkward time when we caught my dad with a hard net workout. So that made me feel like I could do it today.
I just want to give you a sample of what Greg Cody sounded like, which set us all off in a panic, everyone except for Greg Cody, because he's old and he's stubborn and he refuses to go to the doctor. So that's what you sounded like for the better half of a month now. Me, Dan, everyone. We told you repeatedly to go to the doctor. You ignored us. You finally went to the doctor, and the results of your visit to the doctor were what?
Yeah, after several tests, they found a tumor in my chest.
It's Dan, Stu, and Greg Cody on ESPN Radio.
A benign tumor, I should say, in hindsight.
One of the all-time greatest moments in show history.
Whose voice was that?
Stugotz sounds so different.
He sounds so
Was that
good.
Stugotz?
Yeah.
I just want to give you a sample of what Greg Cody sounded like.
The clarity.
That's wild.
I
Getting
did
a
not-
sample of what Stugotz sounded like is horrifying in retrospect.
Are you okay now, Greg?
I'm good. It was a benign tumor. And
There's nothing. It's only benign if it's someone else's tumor.
And it
That's
was
true.
removed.
Well, it was the only time I've had like major surgery, so it was a scare.
So speaking of old people having health issues, Larry Nassar got stabbed many times in prison.
Not enough.
And when I brought it up in the room outside, that, David, was the general consensus, was celebration. And I get it, of course. I'm also in favor of Larry Nassar having cosmic punishment befalling him at every possible turn.
Not stabbed to death, right? To be clear.
Not stabbed to death.
I want him right near death, over and over and over again.
But this is where the idea of a justice system inside of a prison is fascinating to me.
I want maximum pain, like from Princess Bride type stuff.
I hate Larry Nassar more than you do.
There is a hierarchy of crimes that are not liked inside prisons. They have their own justice system. So it's only a matter of time. It's like Jeffrey Dahmer. They also don't like serial killers and cannibals. You don't want to be that, and you don't want to be a child abuser.
It's part of our human nature that we want vengeance for certain types of crime and criminals. I'm going to be very honest with you. If somebody tells me that the Parkland mass murderer has something wrong happen to him, something bad happened to him in prison, I'm not losing any sleep over it.
I wouldn't expect anybody to. I think, but this is where it becomes interesting, is simply how we are okay with people who have been sent to prison for reasons of their own, them being our vessel for retribution, in lieu of the justice system doing what we were rooting for the justice system to do.
I am on Prison Talk, so I get a bunch of TikToks
What does that
from
mean?
like the segment of TikTok that's just former prisoners. I get those on my For
I
You
love
page.
those.
They're the best. I get them all the time, and always the most popular like stories are the ones of revenge, where they'll ask prisoners like, "What happens to these type of offenders in jail?" And it's people get stabbed a lot.
What? Wait, just as a follow-up, these are people who are incarcerated who are posting
Formerly
TikToks?
incarcerated people.
Ooh, there are some people who are in prison that are on TikTok, and I follow
Great
them
Wi-Fi
too.
from there.
They do the dances.
I've seen people on like Instagram Live from prison.
They've been on
How does
Could Have
this
Been
work?
Records with Drewski. They're in prison rapping for Drewski on Could Have Been Live Records. And it's like, oh, how?
I'm not loving that as a way of entertaining themselves.
No.
That they are involved in our social media algorithms now.
I've
For
learned a lot,
kids.
though.
So that's the problem. You may know what to do with what you've learned. What about the kids who are watching who don't know what to do with what they're seeing?
Well, it seems like what they are explaining though is what life is actually like in prison, which is certainly fascinating to me as well.
So a deterrent. The TikToks are a deterrent. You watch them, Lucy, and say, that's
Wait,
an act I'm never going to do.
Are you concerned that Lucy is consuming content that is very popular because it's making kids want to go to prison?
Or making it's somehow making Lucy think that being in prison is not the worst possible scenario.
No.
Lucy,
None of
please
it
explain
none of
prison
it
talk.
glorifies going to prison. None of these people are like, "Hey, you guys are gonna love it here." Like it's all, yeah, it's all like, "Hey, we have phones, but we're not allowed to leave." Like it's very upfront about the reality of prison. Like the videos I like is there's this one girl on there who her videos are awesome, but she'll be like, "This is how I did my makeup in prison," and it's wild. It's so interesting to learn.
No, but I'm with David on what I think his point is that this is scary, that there are a lot of little kids on TikTok and there's no real, like, if my daughter scrolls past I don't know how this would ever get in her algorithm, but I'm like, if all of a sudden she's looking at it, all of a sudden a young kid could be, there's a lot of videos out there. I'm with David in general, maybe not this specific genre of videos.
This speaks to my general fear of what we were being served algorithmically, which is not specific to this content, which sounds kind of fascinating, admittedly. But just like, oh yeah, I don't want my kids to be unmonitored on this unbounded internet in general.
I was fine with having my kids not monitored because it was the beginning of social media. But today, if I had little kids, so with your child, you tell me you don't want parental controls. If you give your child a phone, you have to understand.
When do you give a kid a
algorithms.
phone?
It's getting younger and younger.
I'm already dealing with my daughter scrolling through like YouTube Reels. It's YouTube Kids for the most part, but every once in a while I'll be hearing what she's listening to, and I hear this kid being mean to another kid. I'm just like, what are you watching? And I take it, and I like, it's scary. You just all of a sudden what you think was, oh, she's doing YouTube Kids scrolling, and then all of a sudden it's like, what's this conversation I'm hearing her listen to?
What happened to cartoons?
They stopped showing them on Saturday mornings.
And kids stop watching them.
What happened to you're old man?
I love cartoons.
I
Saturday
know.
morning cartoons.
Oh,
There was nothing better.
Can we play that sound of Nick Castellanos being asked at the All-Star Game stuff, because when we talk about our nostalgia for cartoons, it is clear that Nick Castellanos agrees.
Sure. I didn't realize Scooby-Doo was a superhero. Can you kind of explain his superhero lore?
I mean, well, first off, he's a dog, right? And he can talk.
Fair enough. Okay.
And he solves mysteries. So I think that a dog that can talk and helps people by solving mysteries, I think is a superhero.
Checks off all the superhero boxes, has special skills, and he helps people.
Correct.
Greg was pointing triumphantly at Nick Castellanos.
He makes all the points. I mean, Scooby-Doo is underrated. You know, he's seen as a joke. He's not. Did he mention that he drives as well, Scooby-Doo? He drives
the mystery machine. The magical mystery
Wait,
machine.
is Scooby-Doo the driver of the mystery
No.
machine?
No, it's Fred.
Yeah, it's mystery.
Yeah, but he can drive. Scooby-Doo can drive.
In a pinch, he has driven. It's true.
No,
he has driven in a pinch, him and Shaggy.
It's a gag.
Scooby-Doo is not a superhero. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever
Why
heard.
not? Well, hold on. The logic of Nick Castellanos, in all seriousness, is ironclad to me.
Why isn't he a superhero?
Can he fly?
You don't need a cape.
He
to be
can
a
talk!
Superhero. He's an every dog superhero.
Bugs Bunny's not a superhero.
Is Roger Rabbit a superhero?
No.
Is Wile E. Coyote a superhero?
But
No.
do they?
He's an anti-hero.
Wile E. Coyote.
Wile E. Coyote is an anti-hero.
Wile E.
Damn
Coyote
right.
is an
Anti-hero.
inspiration.
That's right.
He's an inspiration.
Yeah, he is.
He never gives up.
Never gives up.
No, it's Acme that fails on him.
Talk
Exactly
about
right.
perseverance.
Well, he also knows that he doesn't really die.
But is that a superhero?
But those people, those characters, are not solving crimes every GD week, David.
Is Mr. T a superhero?
Is Batman a superhero?
Yes.
So
No,
why
no,
the
no,
hell
he's
is
a
it
vigilante.
Scooby-Doo?
He's a vigilante, not a superhero.
Wait a minute.
There's a difference.
Wait, the boys can be superheroes.
Wait, hold on, Roy. You need the police department to approve who's a superhero or not? Is that what you're implying about Batman?
I mean, he works with the police department. He's not employed by the police department. They actually do need him. But at the
Superheroes
beginning, that
need a
1099.
costume. They need a
ACAB,
costume.
All cops are Batmans.
Superheroes need a costume.
No, false. Wile E. Coyote can survive an exploding box of dynamite. Doesn't have a costume.
He's not a
Barely
no one
wears
says
clothes.
he's a superhero.
He's a superhero, Wile E. Coyote.
He's not a superhero.
Yeah, I
you
think
are
he is.
you're hurting
No,
your
he's a
argument. You think
supervillain.
you're helping your argument, but you're hurting it.
Nope.
Lucy is clearly the youth correspondent here.
Yes.
So what do you know about any of these things?
Okay, so what I'm confused about is so the Scooby-Doo, they figure out who the bad guy is, and then they're like, "Hey, police, come take them." Where I feel like superheroes, they kill them, right?
No,
Maybe not kill,
I don't know about
not
Batman didn't kill
kill,
anybody,
but
though.
like, no, obviously not Batman. But
No,
like,
because Spider-Man will leave criminals in a web for the authorities.
Yeah, but
Roy's precious authorities to approve of.
Hey, listen. No, let's not put me in that vein. No.
Spider-Man is about stopping them, where Scooby-Doo and them are about unmasking.
They're all about apprehending the bad people.
So
They're solving mysteries. Is what
I don't
they're
know
doing.
what you were
Which is
doing
like
with
a
Wile E.
detective.
Coyote, though.
Yeah,
they're detectives.
You made Wile E. Coyote a superhero.
Okay, Wile E.
That's so
Coyote
off.
is the adversary of the Roadrunner. Okay?
Super villain to me.
Well, what's so great about the Roadrunner?
No, that's what I mean. Super
He's fast.
He's trying to be
me-
caught. He's trying to escape being caught.
devious.
The
A
Roadrunner
liar.
is trying to humiliate. He's like a hazer. It's like hazing we talked about earlier. The Roadrunner is hazing and trying to humiliate Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote is fighting back, won't give up. The quality of never giving up is embodied by Wile E.
This is the new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.
I just need to acknowledge poetry that cannot possibly be scripted. Because Greg Cody, while praising Wile E. Coyote, unironically, again walked in to the painted tunnel that is the hard net workout.
You are the Wile E. Coyote.
Greg is Wile E. Coyote.
That's
What?
social team. Run with that.
That was one of my nicknames as a kid.
No, okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah. A friend of mine always called me Coyote.
So,
Greg Coyote.
so there might be tension at this table now as David Sampson cocks his head to the right, because in terms of people at this table who are into Wile E. Coyote, David Sampson has a counter argument.
I believe that I have an affinity to Wile E. Coyote way more than you do.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
In the sense that he is permanently a part of my life.
You hate Larry Nassar the most, and you like Wile E. Coyote the most.
Yes.
Was Wile E. Coyote's portrait in your time capsule?
Close. He's on my leg.
Oh, it's tattooed?
Yes. I have
right.
Wile E. Coyote.
Do it.
I don't know how to show it to the camera, but I'm happy to.
You put your leg on the table.
That's right.
Let's see this bad boy.
Wile E. Coyote right here. And it represents, he always had a little umbrella, if you've ever watched it. And the umbrella is when bad is happening.
Yeah, when
Turn
the bricks
your
fall on him.
Little there.
The
I see.
tiny
No, we see. We
umbrella.
can make it out.
Yep,
Little
there it
umbrella.
is.
The
Wile E.
umbrella's right here. And the
Okay.
umbrella is like, oh my God, it's been a very bad year.
Yeah.
And I got that after my father and sister died. And I felt like I'm Coyote. Like, that's, what else do you got for me? I'll
Wow.
put the umbrella up. All the stuff will come down. And I'm still going to be fine. Because that's what Wile E. Coyote does. After the commercial break, he's always fine again.
So you're the living example of his perseverance.
I love his
I like that.
personality trait.
So
I
follow-up
wanted to make
question.
fun of that, but that's
I
cool.
agree. I agree. I have a follow-up question, though. Does that mean Bob Huggins has Wile E. Coyote aspects?
No,
pros
he's going
pro.
to disappear.
You are a pros pro, my friend. Transition.
Wow.
Bob
What a transition.
Huggins, who resigned from West Virginia, the patriarch of West Virginia basketball, had obviously gotten in very public trouble, right? There was the thing he said accidentally on a broadcast that was deeply homophobic. There was a thing where he got arrested, stopped for a DUI in which his blood alcohol level was absurd. And then, finally, he agrees to resign. Or so we thought, because Bob Huggins, David, is now claiming that actually he never left the building.
It's an incredible claim that he's making, and I thought that he would not double and triple down. And he released a statement that I covered on today's Nothing Personal, where you can find anywhere you find a podcast as part of the Meadowlark family. But
Oh, by the way, Oddball, starring Amin El-Hassan, Charlotte Wilder, launching on DraftKings today. Today!
So make sure you follow that and subscribe to it, Oddball. I know that you had said that on the show.
www.pablo.show. Also.
You know what? The Greg Cody Show podcast, which also has a new episode out, is not on the DraftKings network or affiliated directly with the Le Batard Show, but please listen anyway.
Don't forget to listen to Montgomery and Company on Thursdays.
Also, the Rear Naked Choke on Substack.
Cinefowl.
Also, my Instagram. Subscribe.
Oh.
I started working here yesterday. I have nothing to plug.
Welcome.
I had as part of the contract with Meadowlark that is not an employment contract, but part of the IC, it's as an independent consultant, is that when I appear, you have to say Nothing Personal with David Sampson and at David P. Sampson.
Okay, you're now.
That
I see what
is
you're
part
doing
of the
here.
deal.
I see what you're doing here.
So I'm trying to make
You
sure that we're
negotiated
covered.
that?
But now you're
Without-
trying
yes.
to do it again, a bonus time, by talking about how you negotiated it. So please return to Bob Huggins.
I'm trying to make sure that you, as the conductor, understand that you have responsibilities. You
Yeah.
can't just sit here and lean on your microphone.
I regret now not making the short joke when you said beneath you before.
Wow.
By the
I've been
way,
holding that in for an hour.
something
tee.
something he just tapped on right there. You are crushing just the vibe of that microphone stand. The end stand, like Pablo, like the way you're leaning on
Guys.
it, you're working it.
Yeah,
Every
very
segment, it's a
casual.
little
The
different.
Codys today have made me feel so great.
I'm
Top
gonna
10
learn- I'm gonna
handshake,
learn from that.
top whatever
No,
it is,
please
fill
don't,
in.
Greg. Greg, you're
Oh,
not
yeah,
going to be
no,
able
me
to
and
talk
Greg,
into
just
it.
two guys cutting it up.
It did start with that handshake.
It did.
That set a good vibe for the entire day.
Transfer of power,
Yeah.
as it were.
Excellent.
Wonder Twin powers activate. Nobody.
Not
Nothing.
superheroes.
Those are superheroes.
Disagree. Bob Huggins.
They are superheroes.
Bob Huggins released a statement. The question has been, the old lawyers he had negotiated a separation. Now he has a new lawyer who's come into the picture and said, actually, that resignation was not real. And for the last 20 days, Bob Huggins has actually been the West Virginia coach. And the statement he released was on stationery that said, media statement, Robert Huggins, West Virginia University basketball coach. And I was laughing this morning on the show, Nothing Personal with David Sampson. Could I possibly release a statement now that said David Sampson, president, Miami Marlins? Can't do it.
Never resigned.
Well-
That is true. That is true.
you
Never
go.
resigned. Got paid out, but I can't do it. The president, I think, is allowed to do it. You're always allowed to say President of the United States.
In eternity.
Forever, in eternity. But I don't think you're allowed to say it. So Huggins released a statement to the media with that as his title, claiming, I don't know what everyone's talking about here. I'm still the head coach of WVU.
Right. Yeah, the president can do that. Also, I can say I'm Greg Cody, the host of the Greg Cody Show podcast ad infinitum without ever not saying it. I think, in all seriousness, I think what's in play here with Huggins, and I guarantee you this conversation or some form of it happened between Huggins and his lawyer or a confidant. At some point, they're going, you know what? Yeah, I said something I should have. I demeaned the LGBTQ community. I'm a raging homophobe. It'll blow over. Give it a few weeks. People are going to forget about it, and then I'm going to reemerge. I think that's what's in play here.
But what is so amazing about this story is West Virginia's response. Because West Virginia did not merely let this blow over. They pointed out all of the ways in which Bob Huggins had actually resigned.
One of the rules is a lawyer letter when you respond, and their counsel did respond with a long letter. You don't want to give away your entire case in any sort of response. And it shows their 3-page letter had so much stuff in it, but they've got more because you never show your entire hand in any sort of response. And it was so long. I sent it to you.
The idea that they have more than the basic facts that, number one, Mr. Huggins' longtime lawyer had agreed on his behalf formally to actually resign, that they had sought his wife as a proxy because Bob Huggins apparently does not use email, that his wife agreed on his behalf that he was resigning, that he then, Bob Huggins himself, physically, the corpus of Bob Huggins showed up in the locker room and told his team that he was leaving, and then went to the office and cleaned out his desk.
Bingo.
And resigned. And then weeks passed.
He walked out with his full box of stuff, right? Walking out after being fired, right? Which is what you do. And then all of a sudden, 20 days later, wait, maybe the homophobia, past that. Maybe the DUI, past that.
Yeah.
It's West Virginia.
Yeah. Short
There's
memories.
got to be a way.
Right.
And West Virginia's having none of it. He has zero chance of getting his job back.
Yeah, zero legal standing, I would think.
Zero
The fact
anything.
that he's trying this is itself an enormous reason to never hire this man again.
Well,
it's unhinged.
He could have been drunk when he decided to, based
Allegedly.
off of his.
They actually gave him a chance to say that. West Virginia, when they got this letter from the attorney, they gave Huggins a chance to say that this attorney was not acting on your behalf. This attorney is a rogue attorney who's claiming that you didn't resign. And Huggins doubled down and said, no, this is my attorney. This is my plan. And it's a plan that will not come together.
Bob Huggins, man. On some level, I am morbidly, again, just really curious about whether there's no chess game here, right? Like there is, David, is there any, what's the next move for Bob Huggins here?
He wants to get paid. So that's the same thing with Fitzgerald. There would be no issue in Northwestern if they offered him the balance of his contract. When you try to terminate someone for cause, you're trying to not pay them. You can terminate anybody you want as long as you pay them what their contract is. Anytime, anywhere. So that's the issue.
More likely to get rehired, Fitzgerald or Huggins?
Tied for 0.
They're both going to get rehired.
Oh, I don't
Pat
know.
Fitzgerald's going to be a defensive analyst at Alabama. Nick Saban's school for wayward coaches is ready for someone new. And then Huggins will end up at a small school or Liberty.
I thought you meant at the actual schools.
I meant in general, just another job.
100%. Fitzgerald is a young guy. He will get another job. Huggins, I'm not sure. Will he go the Bob Knight or the Rick Pitino route and choose a different school to try to rebuild himself up?
Patino's had 9 jobs since that. Like he continues to get.
Rick
to get
Pitino
hired.
is unkillable. Perhaps
He's a vampire.
biologically, actually, because he's a vampire, but also because no one remembers the things. I mean, so this is to Greg's point about Bob Huggins. Like, our memory is so limited. It is. Like this week, we've had a lot of time spent on these specific stories.
I mean, my dad thinks you're the best handshake he's ever had.
Well, that's because it's
Top
true.
10. No, I said top 10.
See?
And
All
I
right, who's
stand
the best
behind
then?
that. Read the book, Roy.
Okay,
He
I'll
said he
read it.
doesn't even keep a list, so there's no top 10.
I don't log the handshakes, but Pablo, you're top 10.
It is. On my podcast next week, The Greg Cody Show, I'm going to list my top 10 all-time handshakes.
All right now.
So on this piece of paper, I have written the phrase "#1 pet peeve." Why did I do that? Does anyone remember? Did you have a number one pet peeve? Did you?
Greg Cody is a man that says pet peeve a lot.
I got a
something
million
will
pet
happen
peeves.
and he'll say that's a pet peeve of mine.
Right.
Do people? I don't think that's an old person thing. I haven't heard someone in their 20s say that's a pet peeve of mine. It's an old term.
I say that.
Like David.
Yeah, pet peeves are alive and well.
Yeah, I say that, Greg. Young people use that. Yeah.
Sure.
Like David.
I sit corrected.
I don't know why you write things down. Are you that old where you write things down and you can't remember the frame of reference?
I've written two things.
That's right.
I am
so
that old.
That's why I'm accusing Pablo. Of
I've written a
such.
couple of things on here. Oddball launching, check. Number one pet peeve, ongoing mystery. And now I feel like your collective dementia at this table has infected my brain.
I have zero dementia.
Well, whatever we
Sharp as a
forgot
tack.
or didn't get to, we will get to in the post game because coming up next, Tahoe content, or at least I think.
Oh my God, that's
Mike
right.
Ryan, Stugotz,
they're over there.
God.
We're
Jeremy
leaving.
Taché. I'm waiting for Jeremy Taché to contribute something.
Anything.
I want you to tweet me
Fart bear.
if Jeremy says anything important, anything useful, because all I hear he's doing, he's out there combining words. That's what he's out there doing.
You know what? I think that was my number one pet peeve.
Jeremy? Me too.
Jeremy Taché.
Yeah, just
why
him.
is he? Now I'm realizing that my pet peeve is Chris Cody's pet peeve because Chris wants to
And
be
no
Tahoe.
video. I do not want to play this video of Jeremy Taché. If you air that thing, you're all fired.
What?
Greg, your thoughts?
Is that Jeremy?